So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome from the Janki Foundation and from the Brahma Kumaris. I can see lots of familiar names and faces, and so double welcome to you all and a wave. Also, a warm welcome to everyone joining us on Facebook live stream. You have joined us today for the third session on embracing isolation. And today's topic is creativity and self-expression. This series is brought to you as a collaborative effort, and we will be inviting you to post your questions and thoughts on chat when each person is speaking. My name is Mistry, and I'm working in the community as psychiatrist in London. I have been involved with the Janki Foundation since '98, and the different projects and retreats have all really brought out the holistic, the spiritual, and often a multidimensional approach to how we understand and think about healthcare. Before we start this session, just to let you know that each of these sessions is being recorded and it will be available from the website. So either on the Janki Foundation website, and it will take you to YouTube, or to the Janki Foundation Facebook website, and all will be available soon after the session. We will be asking you to keep your mics muted because of this aspect of recording. But again, we would love you to post your questions and thoughts on chat. And if you are the kind of person who only thinks of questions afterwards, and you have questions from the past few sessions, past two sessions, please do post them or email them to us, and we will try to answer those either today or next month. As we have already taken an overview of loneliness, we have looked at already how isolation has really, the COVID-19 pandemic has really accentuated people's experience of loneliness, and the enforced isolation has brought out things that perhaps people were not expecting or really ready for. In many ways, COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to explore different aspects, other aspects of ourselves. And one of the key things that has become apparent is that we may find ourselves facing patterns of thinking, patterns of being, which we hadn't had to look at before. In the last two sessions, we did look at practical measures such as keeping a schedule. We looked at how the 6 ways of well-being can help to ameliorate isolation and help us to remind us to build connections with people within our social circle. As social beings, though, although we may choose to be alone at times, often we would prefer to have personal connection. And I think many people are finding that even being connected through the internet and through the computer, it is an effective way of feeling that we have met. However, being alone for long periods of time has its impact. Many methods can be used to help us challenge how we're feeling and how we're thinking. Methods such as meditation, mindfulness, appreciative inquiry, being creative, visualizing, all of these can help us to put a break to one pattern of thinking and allow us to move into a different pattern of thinking. So we have already thought about isolation and loneliness as something we perceive, something that we experience, and something that we want to find different ways of addressing. what we will be doing in today's session is looking at how we can practically manage periods of being alone, using a variety of techniques, and perhaps going a little bit more deeply into each technique. I'd like to introduce to you our first speaker. Her name is Deidra O'Toole. She has worked in many different roles in the NHS in her working life, and she has been an active participant in Janky Foundation events over the last 10-15 years. Deidra last ran a series of workshops at Guy's Hospital. Currently, she's working for another trust in patient experience, and she has a lot of experience of clinical governance and really how hospitals operate and how we deal with patient experience. So I'm going to invite Deidra to talk to us today. Deidra, would you be able to share with us your own thoughts on how to cope with being on your own, perhaps through your own experiences, and how one might cope with difficult times such as being ill? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Calla. That was a lovely introduction. I have to say I really enjoyed listening to the last seminars, and what I loved about them was that they provided a balance of information, of lightness, of personal experiences, and also movement and energy. And I'm also really grateful, thank you, Calla, for the chance to be able to share my thoughts on this subject. I've lived alone mostly by choice over the last 20 years. So from a personal point of view, I'm sharing from my experience of isolation. Recently, over the last year, since 2020 and now in 21, so many of us have been in enforced isolation. So it really is such a relevant and current topic right now. So I'd like to share, if I may, a personal story. About 7 years ago, I developed a chronic balance disorder. And this meant that I was bedbound for weeks. I could barely function. I couldn't walk. When I did manage to scramble out of bed, I couldn't walk straight. I couldn't think straight. I was dizzy, I was disorientated, and I'd lost a lot of the brain functioning that we normally take for granted. It took me many months to realize that the brain prioritizes balance over many, many other functions, including thinking, reasoning, walking. It took me about 3 years to get to 90% recovered. And I was fortunate in this because during my process of learning about myself and my illness, I learned that many people never really truly recover. So thank God, I was really grateful. So during those long months of illness and recovery, I had to learn how to manage the way I was thinking during that time. And the best way I found at that time was to think about things that I could do rather than things about what I couldn't do. It became a daily kind of incentive or a game for me to try and find things that I could do easily, things that gave me joy, things that gave me a sense of achievement and a sense of purpose. And even though I might have been bedfast or asleep for hours, many hours during the day, I made it my focus to try and get the best out of the rest of the day. I might have been only awake for 2 hours a day, but then I wanted to try and get the best out of those 2 hours. So when all of this happened, I was really, really anxious, as you might imagine. I'd lost my ability to walk. I was completely confused. I had no idea what was wrong with me. I was kind of lost. I was not able to do the things that I normally took for granted. I remember trying to write an email to my boss at work after about 3 months of this, and it took me like an hour and a quarter to write a 2-sentence email, something that would normally take 2 minutes. So what I did was I decided to try and learn as much as I could about my condition and about myself. So I turned to Facebook groups and online forums to find other people in the same situation as myself. And I found hundreds of them, thousands of them. you know, was quite a common condition. I'd never heard of it before, but it was common. I found autobiographies and biographies of people who had suffered with strokes and similar brain disorders. And for me, it was really, really therapeutic to resonate with other people's stories and other people's, you know, there was lots of Facebook groups where people would share how they coped, what they did to benefit themselves, and how they basically tried to heal themselves. So I kind of lapped that up. It was amazing. So first of all, I tried to drive myself to get better and better every day. I mean, I took brain training courses. My memory had been completely shot. So I went from like 20% to about 65% in about 6 weeks. But then I realized I needed to pace myself, because I got very, very exhausted very quickly if I was very, very pushy with myself. And also at the time, I'd been a meditator for 24 years. I found I simply couldn't meditate. I wasn't able to concentrate at the time for very long. And I couldn't bring my usual intelligence to situations that was going on inside my head. And I would just be completely wiped out and exhausted if I tried. So what I did have to do was start at the beginning all over again. I literally had to go right back to basics. I had to start by being present right here, right now. I had to accept where I was, because the more I resisted and tried to get better without accepting where I was, I would just get completely exhausted and basically go around in circles. So the first thing was to accept myself where I was. And I guess that was the most powerful lesson of those years, was that I had to be in the moment, you know, whether I could walk or not, whether I could think or not, whether I could remember anything or not, and whether I was awake or not. I had to find a place within myself that accepted fundamentally the condition that I found myself in. And I had to find a sense of allowing myself to feel okay with not being okay. I had to find a place of peace within myself. And I suppose what really helped during this time was that I really did have a single-minded wish to recover. I really, really wanted to get better. But on the other hand, if I was too driven and too single-minded, I just got completely exhausted. And because I got exhausted, I got disheartened. So I had to learn to pace myself. I had to learn to bring in a whole new energy of self-compassion and acceptance. And self-compassion and acceptance, I'd never actually even heard of it before. I'd never felt the need to. I guess you discover things when you really need them. But I realized that this illness had triggered like an overactive brain and completely threw me into flight and fight syndrome. So I had to go right back to the basics, and I had to learn how to comfort myself. And during those months and years, I can safely say that although I was alone and although I was isolated for much of that time, I didn't really feel alone and isolated. I think I was so busy trying to recover and trying to get better and to use every minute of the day to try and figure out my next steps. I often didn't notice weeks and even months passing by. So I guess my biggest learning during that period was that whatever you're thinking about has a huge impact on your well-being. And physically, we can be totally alone, but it is possible to be totally absorbed in whatever you're doing. And I think at that time, my intention, my focus, my energy, I felt as long as it was pointing in the right direction for my highest well-being. And no matter what twists and turns and setbacks come along the way, and they did come, but I knew that I'd get to a better place. I did have hope. So that was really, really crucial for me. And I mean, in the last year and a half, I really think that the lockdowns of 2020 and now the third one now in the last 6 weeks, I think they can be a time for great personal change. I mean, it's given us the gift of time for a while. I can use it to focus my energy on things that I really want to achieve. I can be as quiet as I want to be. I can connect with other people as much as I want to. Maybe not physically, but there are really, really, really so many ways to connect. There's, you can phone them, you can see them by video, there's FaceTime, there's WhatsApp, God knows. I mean, I've attended so many Zooms in the last year. I think I'm zoomed out, but it's been amazing. I mean, I've been able to attend so many meetings and so many conversation starters. It's just been absolutely incredible. And I have to say, I've really enjoyed it. And sometimes, like Calla said, there is a feeling of connection, even though it's not physical. So I really think these lockdowns are a chance to reboot. You know, they've a chance to discover time for family, friends, and the people that matter to you. A chance to smell the roses, a chance to do some gardening, baking, reading, catching up with learning, or learning something new that you've never previously had time for. And I remember the feeling that I had when the first lockdown was announced. It was actually a feeling of relief. I was thinking, oh my God, thank God the world has stopped spinning so fast, because it was a chance to breathe, a chance to catch up with myself, a chance to even meditate a bit more, because I'm quite work driven, so I don't meditate as often as I should. So it's a chance to catch up with whatever I need to catch up with, myself, others, my health, my friends, my passions, my hobbies, my goals. So certainly I was really grateful for the lockdown, and I felt that I'd been given a gift of time for a while, and time to practice certainly a bit of self-compassion and gratitude. But I do also think that the lockdowns have brought a lot of challenges. I mean, it's not easy to have most of your personal liberties taken away. It's not easy to feel that you're locked in a house for 90% of the day. It's not easy trying to work from home, trying to live with your household. Maybe you have to homeschool your children, or you have to care for people who need help in your home and work at the same time. So, you know, it's certainly brought conditions where there's very little opportunity for a personal release, and you might feel imprisoned in your environment. So enforced lockdown, enforced isolation can be really, really difficult. And I'm thinking, you know, whenever I experience a low mood, or if I feel empty, or if I feel not as happy as I should, and I have definitely experienced this over the last couple of months, what I've ended up doing is actually, rather than telephone 10 people to try and immediately distract myself from feeling empty, I try and sit down with myself, and I try and acknowledge how I'm feeling. I say to myself, okay, this is how I feel right now. I feel rubbish, but I feel like this right now. And what I do is I spend a few moments just accepting, okay, I feel like crap, but that's fine, that's okay. And then what I may do is I may choose to listen to something positive, or I may choose to bring positive thoughts into my mind to try and, it's like, I guess what I'm saying is that although I may be feeling rubbish, I am not my feelings. I am more than that. So feelings come and go, and they certainly don't last forever. You know, I've learned over the last few years that you can choose what you're thinking about. I can choose my thoughts rather than have them control me. I can consciously choose what I want to think about. I think sometimes when I'm feeling empty and low, I forget that. It's like a feeling comes over me and I'm completely engulfed in that feeling. But if I remember that I can always consciously think more positive. Where focus goes, energy flows, and that allows me to feel more positive. So, for example, I may choose to sit down and meditate, and within a couple of minutes, I may feel lighter. I may feel more positive. And sometimes what I do is I schedule a walk, because I find walking, then I can consciously bring thoughts into my head, and I find that really, really helpful. And I turn it into a little meditation experience. So, for example, I'll walk through the woods, and I'll take time to notice things around me. I'll notice the mud underneath my feet. I'll hear the birds chirping in the woods around me. I might notice a family and children running around, playing games and playing hide and seek. The pool and the lake where I normally frequent might be frozen because of very icy weather at the moment, and the ground might be flooded with many inches of water. I may have to backtrack my steps several times to find surer ground. And I noticed that gamekeepers have placed many notices warning of flooding, and I feel really thankful for their diligence because it prevents me getting bogged down and stuck where I would normally walk. I walk around a lake that has flooded completely, so no chance to walk where I comfortably walked 2 weeks ago, and that water is frozen. And I noticed the swans and the geese are still paddling in areas that are not frozen. So I sit on a bench for a couple of minutes, and I notice a family having a picnic nearby, even though it's 2 degrees. And I wonder at the fact that even though nature is challenged by flooding and by sub-zero conditions, things are still alive. People are still visiting. I'm still alive. The birds are still enjoying being there. And yeah, there's a sense of energy and wonder. So yeah, they were a few of my thoughts, Calla, on the subject.
Great. Thank you, Deidra. I think what's been really helpful is to hear your story and how you were so busy trying to find solutions. So you were learning about your condition and how that kept you occupied, and instead of sort of giving up and feeling that you couldn't cope, you actually made sure that you sourced information and help. And I think also very nice that you've mentioned to us that perhaps you have certain feelings, but you're not your feelings, and that things are fleeting, and that you have a choice in how you think. And I think all of these are really, really helpful things for us to be aware of, because often we think that here I am stuck in this pattern of thinking and nothing's going to change. And just to know that through meditation and through a bit of application of ideas, you could change your thinking. I think that was really helpful, Deirdre.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's really nice to hear that you change your thoughts, that you can get your thoughts to perhaps change when you're going for a walk. So I think that's something I also find, is that when I'm out for a walk, I can consciously choose thoughts that I perhaps wouldn't if I was sitting in the same space. So that's
Definitely.
really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you also for taking us through that meditative experience. It felt like a meditative experience of you walking in the woods. Is that something you consciously did as a kind of meditation?
Absolutely. Because I remember one day I wasn't feeling well at all. I wasn't feeling good at all. So I consciously got my walking boots on. I consciously got in my car, drove to my local beauty spot. And I consciously, because I knew that my feelings wasn't making me feel in an optimum mood. I knew that. So I consciously actually walked around that wood. And so what I was sharing really was a memory from a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah. And I can see that people are posting that it was an enjoyable talk. And would you be able to share with us a self-compassion? Because I think you drew on your knowledge of self-compassion. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, absolutely. No problem, Calla.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what self-compassion is, and then perhaps give us an experience?
Of course. I mean, self-compassion basically is the experience of mindfulness, bringing in the whole feeling of self-compassion and love. It's the experience of being present right here, right now. It's also understanding that isolation and loneliness or frustration or any untoward feelings, it's a shared experience. It's not just your feeling alone. So there's many thousands, if not millions of people who are going through the same experience right now. And so people, when you tend to resonate with other people and you're aware that you're not the only one, you tend to feel less affected somehow. I don't know how it works, but the mind, when you know that there's thousands of people feeling the same way you do, you feel a little bit better about yourself. So, so self-compassion is the practice of consciously bringing yourself to the present, bringing a sense of mindfulness, and bringing also a sense of self-ease. So you're like supporting yourself emotionally, especially when you're not feeling very well and you're not feeling very good. So it allows you to bring a sense of comfort. So for example, if you're feeling depressed or if you're feeling anxious, it allows you to support yourself in a kind of very loving way. And yeah, really, so I guess in my study of self-compassion, you realize that your feelings are not you, like what I said before, and like what, yeah, the essential you is much deeper than any moods or feelings. So maybe if I just share an example of a self-compassion meditation practice, just for a minute, if that's okay, Carla.
Yeah, if we can, so if everybody can follow along with you, that would help us all to get an experience of self-compassion.
Okay,
thank you.
So the first thing is just sit comfortably or stand comfortably, but wherever you are, just be at rest, be at peace and feel comfortable. Take a breath and just allow your body to feel steady on whatever you're sitting on or standing on. Notice your feet on the floor and take a moment to pay attention to your feet. Imagine that your feet are growing roots down to the center of the earth. And this gives a sense of being connected to the earth and being grounded and stable. You are feeling safe. Continue to breathe, don't stop breathing, and just notice your breathing as you're continuing to breathe. Not forced breathing, not long breathing, just breathe normally. And now take your hand and put it on some part of your body that you feel comfortable with. For example, I'm going to put my hand on my knee. And as you do that, see if you can notice any sensations that arise from the weight of your hand on your knee or whatever part of the body you've put your hand on. Can you feel anything? I mean, I can feel a sense of warmth going from my hand to my knee. It's a little thing, but it allows me to feel comfort from that warmth. It gives me a sense of safety and comfort. And from this place of comfort, I can create thoughts of love and light in my mind. I can allow myself to send myself some really good, pure, good wishes. I send myself thoughts of love. I comfort myself when I'm not feeling well. I look at myself from somewhere else and say, okay, I'm not feeling good right now, but I can send myself some love, send myself some good wishes. And you might find this sense of love expands and you allow yourself to receive love and light from the universe. I allow love and light to settle in me and around me. And now I turn in my mind to wish other people well. I take a moment of compassion to acknowledge all the pain and all the isolation that the world is going through right now. I send out loving good wishes to anyone who is experiencing pain, grief, loneliness, or emptiness. And I allow that feeling of love and light to flow in whatever direction it needs to go in. So I spend a few more minutes just feeling grounded in positivity and knowing that I'm automatically generating vibrations of goodness and love and light. And after a couple of minutes, I come back to the present and to my chair and to my hands on my knee and just feel yourself grounded in your present right now. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, Deidra. Thank you for taking us through that experience, letting us come with you. And I'm sure we'll all benefit from that time in reflection. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So our next speaker today is Reena Raj. She's a positive psychology practitioner and a coach. She has an MSc in applied positive psychology. In the past, she has worked for primary healthcare settings for 13 years and also for Mind, the well-known national mental health charity. Currently, she's working for a primary care network in North London as a health and well-being coach. Reena has also published a book, Clock versus Compass, The Art of Positive Balance, and is a certified yoga instructor. And Reena has spoken to us earlier in December about the ways of well-being and visualization. And today she's going to share with us some tips and thoughts from positive psychology. Thank you, focusing on the research. Thank you, Reena, for joining us today.
Thank you, Carla, and also to Deidra for sharing those powerful insights and that lovely meditation. And I'm sure elements of that personal story will resonate with all of us on many levels. So thank you so much for that. It is great to be here today and to have this opportunity really to share briefly some snippets from positive psychology. And ideas how one can apply self-expression and creativity into daily life to enhance positivity and perhaps also reduce feelings of isolation. So I work with organizations and individuals on a holistic level, combining tools of from positive psychology, coaching, and yoga. And positive psychology is a scientific study of human flourishing. It focuses on our strengths and our internal virtues. It studies what we can enhance and make better in our lives rather than focusing just on what is negative or rectifying problems. So one of the themes that has been vastly researched in positive psychology is gratitude. And evidence-based research from positive psychology states that when we practice gratitude, it increases levels of positive affect and decreases levels of negative affect. And this improves not only our mental health, but also has a variety of physical health benefits. We sleep better, and also has a positive effect on blood pressure. And we also feel calmer and less stressed. And there are many, many different ways to practice gratitude in our daily lives. But I'll mention three specific practices that are backed by research and have some sort of empirical evidence to support the benefits. So the first one is called 3 Good Things. This is a simple yet a very effective technique that is very easy to practice. It simply means writing down 3 good things of the day before going to bed for at least a minimum of 6 weeks. So what you can do is you can keep a notepad next to your bed and write down 3 good things that happened on the day before going to bed. And these can be simple things. These can be things like lovely chat with a friend on the phone, a meal you enjoyed, some interesting thing you read, a smile you noticed, a compliment you received, you know, just anything. It's like finding the tiny jewels of the day. And it is also about creating a positive habit that continues to add meaning in our life. It is a lovely practice and you will definitely sleep much better. I would say write it on paper or notepad or diary, rather than typing on the phone or the mobile. And I know there are a lot of apps, but what I think also people found that if they were using the app to, you know, do the gratitude practice, then they would actually, once they've done it, they'll go on to something else on the mobile. So just at least for 3 weeks, just try writing it on a piece of paper, a notepad. And it would be a good practice not to pick up the mobile phone after that. And it would be just beneficial just to go to sleep after that. And that should really be the last thing you do before sleeping. The second suggestion is writing a gratitude letter. And positive psychology research shows that writing thank you letters also increases positive affect. And one study, the researchers compared 2 groups and asked participants of one group to write a letter about general things and the other group to write specifically a thank you letter to someone that they would like to thank. And what they discovered was that writing 3 letters of gratitude over an 8-week period led to cumulative increase in levels of subjective happiness. So when subjective happiness increases, we tend to feel less lonely. So what you could do is you could write the letters to the person. Of course, you can, if you want to, you can show the letters, but that's not necessary actually. And what you could do is you can write 3 thank you letters over the next 2 months. And the aim is to create an expression of gratitude within us. It can be to people from the past, perhaps someone who's no longer around, or someone famous that has had a positive influence on your life. It can be a relative, a friend, teacher, colleague, even a historical figure. And the good idea would be to schedule gratitude letter writing times, and no one has to read the letters. You don't even have to keep the letters. You can, if you wanted to, and read them after a few months, and positive, as a positive reminder. And positive reminiscence also enhances well-being. But perhaps I think one thing to just remember is, or be aware of, is that if there has been a recent bereavement in the family, and if you decide to write a thank you letter to someone who you have lost recently, it might bring up strong emotions. So just to be aware of that. And the third suggestion is expressive writing of intensely positive experience. So another positive psychology research study examined whether participants will experience beneficial outcomes in response to expressive writing of an intensely positive experience instead of traumatic experience. Because I think we already know that expressive writing can help in reducing levels of post-traumatic stress. So what was found that when compared to with the control group participants, those who wrote about an intensely positive experience through expressive writing exhibited significantly enhanced positive mood. So I think recording intensely positive experience is like a mood booster. So writing about an intensely positive experience also enhances post-traumatic growth. So after trauma, there isn't just stress. So there isn't just post-traumatic stress. There can also be, and often is, post-traumatic growth on many levels. And intensely positive experience can include experience that embodies a powerful positive emotion, like wonder, happiness, epiphany. For example, recalling a birth of a child, a positive travel experience, wedding day, although for some people that might bring, you know, traumatic memories, or like receiving a reward, a meditative experience, an inner awakening, an experience that had positive meaning for you and that brought joy to you. And I think writing one side of A4 sheet is enough. Again, this can be just for yourself and nobody has to read it, unless of course you choose to share it. There is no need to worry about the grammar, spelling. Just try to remember that all bits of the positive details of that experience. And this can be very beneficial in reducing feelings of loneliness. And other than gratitude, another component that is significantly backed by positive psychology research is character strengths. Could we have the slide, please? Thank you. So whilst abnormal psychology studies and lists all that is wrong with human beings in the DSM, you know, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, what positive psychology does, it functions on the premise that human strengths are not secondary to weakness. What we enhance within us becomes us. So character strengths are really virtues in action. And when we are busy practicing our character strengths, we tend to feel less lonely. Or even learn perhaps to use experiences of loneliness for enhancing positive experiences. And Deidra very beautifully, you know, gave some lovely examples how that can be done. So the idea is to create a to-be list. This can be a daily list or a weekly list or a monthly list, and choose 3 character strengths that you want to express. Example like kindness, enthusiasm, optimism, gratitude, hope, zest, forgiveness, courage, optimism, spirituality, humor, creativity, appreciation of beauty, and so on. The beauty about character strengths is that they are not fixed. They can be developed at any time, and we build them when we practice them. So you can see on the slide, you know, a lot of character strengths, and that's not an exhaustive list. I mean, there are many more that you can discover. So choose 3 character strengths and write them down, and creatively think of 1 or 2 actions or ways for you to express each one of them. An example would be kindness, to be kind. So action could be perform 1 random kindness, a random act of kindness to someone you don't know, or send a message of kindness to someone you do know, or vice versa. And what you can do is you can apply your own creativity and think of other ways to be kind. Another example I could give is forgiveness. Think of someone against whom you perhaps hold a little bit of a grudge. Write a forgiveness letter or note. You don't have to post it or share it. You can if you wanted to. Or perhaps do a forgiveness meditation for this person or the situation. And letting go of grudges can also reduce feelings of isolation. Another example would be humor, to be humorous. So finding the fun and light side to situations that can possibly be frustrating, like a noisy neighbor, and I'm speaking from experience here, or long queues, or even this entire situation of the lockdown. I mean, those daily briefings, Professor Whitty, I think it did add some sort of amusement in our lives. And this is not about being facetious or flippant, but just about having the ability to remain light and agile. And humor can reduce loneliness. And so think about a situation that is frustrating in some way, and try to find something funny about it. And I'm sure, you know, when you view the situation from a different angle, the situation can become light. And perhaps I wouldn't suggest to do this with something that is traumatic or has been emotionally painful, but something that just maybe is just irritating or annoying. So practicing character strengths does have real proven benefits. And example, kindness buffers against negative effects of stress and trauma. Humor protects against psychological disorder related to anxiety. Gratitude, hope, and zest are most robustly associated with higher life satisfaction. So these were just some examples. You can choose any other character strengths and write an action for it and practice it. And I would encourage you to create a to-be list alongside your to-do list on a regular basis. And it can be a lot of fun. Choosing an activity that you have to do on your to-do list, do the shopping, but you can pick up a quality with which you want to do your daily grocery shopping. I will do it in an adventurous way. That means you go in different aisles in the supermarket, or I will do it with careful thought towards my nutrition. Means you will pick up, you know, more healthy things, or sense of fun. Perhaps you'll pick up something that you haven't tried. So you can, on your daily to-do list, you can choose a quality and write a to-be list. So we live a flourishing and fulfilled life, not just by constantly fixing our weaknesses, but when we also make the most of our strengths. And the beautiful thing is that giving our strengths and inner qualities, they are abundant in all of us, and we don't deplete them. Our kindness, optimism, humor, and they're not like chocolate or cake, you know, that gets depleted. And here's the thing: we haven't even been able to share chocolate and cake with others because we are not meeting people. But our inner strengths are abundant in all of us, and we can give as much as we like by a phone call, email, text, letter. So many ways to share our inner strengths. So let's share our cake with others. And cake could be compassion, appreciation, kindness, and empathy. So that's a little acronym I made for cake, sharing our cake. And we don't have to be physically around people to share our cake. And lastly, like one cannot collect darkness and throw it out of the room. To remove darkness, we have to switch on the light. We have to produce light, and then darkness vanishes. Similarly, we cannot really remove loneliness. We can all feel lonely time to time, regardless of the lockdown. But when we enhance the positive in our lives, loneliness automatically reduces. So I hope that was of some interest and of some value. Thank you for listening and being here. And if you are interested in positive psychology, in the chat section, there are a couple of websites that you can check, you know, if you want to know more about positive psychology. So thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Reena. That's really helpful to us to know that practicing our character strengths and gratitude, compassion, etc., are all have a research backing to know that these things really do help us to be more positive or to pull ourselves out of negative experiences. Thank you so much. And I'm sure that people are going to find all your tips on the different ways to practice gratitude very helpful. Thank you for that slide showing us, you know, an abundance of character strengths. It's great to know that the character strengths, virtues, positive psychology, that there is a kind of continuum there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
For taking time. Great. So we will, I think that Reena's talk has really helped to accentuate the nature of what we're dealing with, our feelings, our thoughts, and our strengths, what we do, how we practice things. They're all connected, and knowing that there is a research backing, I think really is helpful. We're now going to move into the realm of creativity and movement. And so I'd like to welcome Sharon O'Regan. So most of us, we have met Sharon before in the last 2 sessions, and Sharon has taken us through movement exercises. And just to tell you a little bit about Sharon, Sharon's first career was in the fashion industry, but after a life-changing trip to India in 2008, she switched careers. She volunteered for a charity, and that led her to work for numerous charities, including Mind and the Prince's Trust. Sharon is also a very keen yoga practitioner, and she has researched the topics of dance, movement, health, and well-being. Sharon incorporates a lot of modalities into her group facilitation work, including breath work, Alexander technique, Qigong, Pilates, and yoga. So today, Sharon's going to share with us how important movement and creativity can be in looking after yourself. And also, very interestingly, as with many of our speakers today, Sharon is no stranger to being on her own. And so she will share something from her own experience also. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Calla. And thanks also to Deirdre and to Reena. And thanks to everyone for turning up. So I'd like to start by acknowledging and paying tribute to all those people who are listening and who feel lonely, perhaps because they've lost somebody or maybe lost something. I also lost my mother, or as I say, she transitioned in April 10 months ago. And I had been looking after her after she had a stroke in 2016. I was visiting her every day after I couldn't cope with her at home anymore. And all of a sudden, she was gone. She was a huge influence in my life. I'm an only child, and she encouraged me to go out and do lots of activities. And all I actually wanted to do was to be on my own, because you see, I relish my own company and I enjoy being on my own. I find it a privilege to have my alone time. And although it's great to socialize, and I'm very grateful for those friends that I do have, and I have a choice, and I'm very aware that I have that choice. So I was taken along to my first dance class at about the age of 6, and it was Irish dancing, and I hated it. It was too rigid and there was no freedom in it. And so my mother said to me, well, if you're not going to do Irish dancing, you have to do something. So I decided to take up ballroom dancing, ballroom and Latin American. And then that progressed into ballet and tap and all sorts of other things like drama and singing lessons. And so, although I was a real introvert, this was something that my mother really encouraged me to do, just to come out of myself and also to mix with other children of my own age. So we come back now to this time, the lockdown, and I was very aware of myself that I was keeping myself very busy. So I'm used to activities. I mean, when the gyms were open, I used to go to the gym, and I was always doing some exercise class, or as Calla said, yoga. And the last couple of years, I've been very interested in Qigong and energy work. So this online Zoom has been amazing for me, but I also am very aware of the amount of technology and devices, etc., that I'm using, and I do feel that it has an impact on my body. So 2 weeks ago, I joined a silent retreat for 3 days. So all my devices were switched off on the Friday, and I didn't put them on again until the Monday. And this is where I really had my realization that actually this is what I need. I need silence. It's in the silence that the creativity comes out, really. And it's in the silence where the magic begins. So I find companionship in nature. So I have a daily plan every day. So I find keeping to a schedule, writing out a schedule on a daily basis helps me. And every day is filled with a class. I'm doing a jazz dance class based on the choreography of Bob Fosse. You may remember the film and the musical Chicago. And I believe that creativity is about discovering new things, and it's about breaking old habits. So I'm also doing a 1970s disco dancing course, which is LA style. I didn't even know that there was a specific LA style, but there is. And I'm also doing Latin dance, which brings me right back to those early days of when I was about 5 or 6 years of age. So although the activities are great, I was very surprised in myself to find that when I actually stopped the activities, it was actually okay. Because as Deidra said, you know, the loneliness can come up now and again for anybody. And although I love my own company, there are times when I'm not feeling 100% either. So I'm just aware of it. As Deidra said, I acknowledge it. It might be a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm also very mindful that it will pass and the next day will be better. And so going back to what Reena said about gratitude, I keep a daily gratitude diary as well. I find writing really helps. I recently did a course with the Bush Theatre on solo performances, and free writing was one of the warm-up exercises that we'd use to unleash the creativity. And some of you might be familiar with Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, where she suggests actually writing the morning pages. So 3 pages of writing, just writing what comes out. And I always do it with a pencil, because with a pencil, it just flows. Even if you can't think of anything, you do it as soon as you get up in the morning, and you just put that pencil on the page and you start to write. And even if that's, I don't know what to write, I have writer's block. So you write that, and you don't judge yourself. You know, again, going back to mindfulness as well, where you can observe yourself and not judge. It's neither good nor bad. So going back to the early days of doing all my dancing classes, I was always told, whether it were a dance exam or being on the stage, Sharon, smile. And of course, then I didn't realize that when you smile, serotonin, the neurotransmitter, is actually released, and it tells your body that you're going to have a good time, and it makes you feel better. In fact, Dr. Robert Holden did an experiment and asked volunteers to practice smiling for 20 minutes every day, and it makes you feel better. And actually, the more you smile at people, the more people will smile back at you. So you're creating a happy world. But as I said, you know, I think it would be unrealistic to be happy 100% all the time, 24 hours a day. It's okay to have your feelings going up and down, but just to sit with it, and as I say, just feel the uncomfort, and then it will go away eventually. So Deirdre, what I noticed when she spoke, you know, there were a few things there. Her resilience, and there are 3 pillars of resilience, and one is having a positive outlook on challenges, because the more challenges we have, the next one is actually not going to be so overwhelming. The next thing that hits you, as they say, every mountain that you climb gets easier in the end. And the other thing, Deirdre was actually very motivated to achieve an end goal. So she kept that positivity, she was very motivated, and she also had a problem-solving attitude about her. And so that was a beautiful story. And also what Reena said, I have to say, everything that she said, I feel works. Showing kindness to other people, you know, maybe calling somebody that you haven't spoken to for a long time. Last week, I spoke to somebody who I haven't spoken to for 16 years, and he actually noted that I had been unhappy when I was in the fashion industry, which I had. He said, you're actually purpose-driven. So yes, so going back to the movement too, because that's what I'm here for, really to let you know that movement, of course, we all know it's good exercise, but it also gets other things stimulated. I just read recently that it also hydrates the body through the fascia, which is like the cling film that wraps around our muscles, and also the heart. So we've had quite a lot of information now. So I ask you to place your hands over your heart. When we place our hands over our heart, we take the focus from our head to our heart. And now just close your eyes, maybe just gaze softly down at the carpet, and take 3 long, deep breaths. Inhale and exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. And the third one, inhale, and as you exhale, nice big sigh. So inhale. Now just silently come back to the hand on your heart and focus on the hand on the heart, and think of a time when you were really, really happy. Breathing in and breathing out. Coming back to the here and now. And now just open your eyes and just shake out the hands. We're just stimulating energy. Some people call this Italian Qigong. And smile at the same time. Nice big smile. Send that serotonin and that chi, that life force, around the body. Really go for it. Breathing in and breathing out. Life. Feel the life force, the chi, the prana, the energy. I bumped into a friend yesterday and her acronym for life is living intentionally, fully engaged. Breathing in and breathing out. And now, place your hands in Namaste or prayer-like hands, and just put your thumbs under the sternum, breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And up. This is for creativity. So 2 hands. So one is facing the heavens and the other one facing the earth, and stretch. Hold it. This is called connecting heaven to earth and is energy inspired. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And another one for focus is called the crown pull. So we're going to really press those fingertips into the forehead, and they come across the forehead and down to the temples. And this is for focus. Any exams or anxious, anxiety, and to the crown and to the back and to the neck. And another one, acupressure point for worry, for stress, anxiety, is just here, and also 3 points here. So we just press 1, 2, 3, and then into the palm, just around. This is connected to the heart and the pericardium. 1, 2, 3, and center. And the other hand, 1, 2, 3, and center. 1, 2, 3, and center. And then there's another move where you're putting your hands cross and down. This is a having technique and was invented by a neuroscientist. So this here, what we're doing, it's the feeling of when your mother cradled you as a baby. What you do at the same time, you close your eyes, but your eyeballs are looking up at the sky, left to right at the same time. And again, you can visualize that you're on a beautiful beach, on your own. Breathing in and breathing out. Remember, the eyes are looking up at the sky, eyeballs left to right. Hands like a lotus, looking into the lotus. Again, this is the heart energy. Breathing in all the positive energy. And imagine you're sending all that positive energy out over the airwaves, over the net. I don't know how many of us are there, but I think there's possibly 100 of us. So sending love and joy and happiness and harmony to all of you. Om Shanti. May peace be with you, and may you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Lots of love.
Thank you, Sharon. You have reminded us that there is more to creativity and movement than just doing. You have shown us how there's a greater depth to it, the silence, the intention, the holding of certain thoughts, and shown how the two can blend together. So I thank you very much. It fits in beautifully, it flows beautifully from our other two speakers, and we look forward to more from you next time.
Just 1 minute. I haven't got a cake, but I did make a loaf of bread, and you'll get a slice of that tomorrow, Calla. Lots of love.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
And so I would now like to introduce our last speaker today, Astrid Bendermere, who we heard from last time, all about the cocoon and how the cells are changing when the caterpillar's in a cocoon, and how we have to make something shift in order to move from being caterpillar to a butterfly. So Astrid is qualified as an obstetrician and has worked as a gynecologist prior to retraining as an occupational health physician. She teaches meditation and runs classes in her spare time. And I think currently Astrid is a specialist in occupational health in a particular field. And I'm going to ask Astrid to share her thoughts today on how we can transform those cells from being like a caterpillar to being a bit more like a butterfly. Over to you, Astrid.
Hello, and many thanks for giving me the opportunity to be part of this session, which has been fascinating so far. Yes, what is happening inside ourselves when we are in that time alone, which many have had time on their own, alone during this lockdown, but some of us have been feeling lonely. But I would like to also present the opportunity that even if we are with other people, sometimes we may very well feel lonely. So it's not just the physical loneliness or aloneness that makes us feel lonely, but there is something inside ourselves that needs to be nurtured so that even though we may be alone, we may not feel lonely. And so what happens when we are alone on ourselves? I would like to present the concept that there is an inner world and an outer world. Now, the outer world might be something that we would like to interact with. So initially, particularly in the beginning of being alone, we might want to increase the noise all around us. And so we might watch TV, Netflix, YouTube. We might start phoning around people, which also has beneficial effects, as we've heard today. But in a way, we increase the volume of the interaction that we have with the world out there. And that actually numbs down the very subtle world that we can access and that we've been speaking about today when we are on our own. We will need patience and time and being quiet to actually listen to the inner voice that we all have inside ourselves. Let's explore it. Because that inner voice Reena has been speaking about, Deidra has been speaking about, and Sharon has been speaking about. And it's a really fascinating world. It's a world where we can heal. It's a world where we can care about ourselves. Now, it is winter, and you might have been outside when it was snowing. And one of the fascinating things that I've always noticed is that when there are snowflakes falling maybe on a dark garment, you see how beautiful the flakes are. They are usually very intricate, beautiful crystals. And there was a researcher, Japanese businessman called Masaru Emoto, who actually developed a process by which frozen water crystals, snowflakes, were actually photographed, and by photographing them, they actually showed how consciousness actually, human consciously affects the structure of the water. So he actually started to he found out that water in springs, water exposed to loving thoughts, such you can see on the left-hand side of the slide that has been presented. There was the water in a glass was presented to just the words of love and gratitude. And it actually created a beautiful crystal, very intricate, very complex, very well formed and harmonious. Whereas if another glass of water was exposed to the words that you can read underneath the other picture on the right, the water lost the ability to form a structure, to have coherence, to have harmony in itself. And so he actually explored how water changes to the thoughts and to the human consciousness around it. In fact, he took water from a dam of polluted water in Japan. And he got a picture similar to the one on the right-hand side, where he was not able to create snowflakes out of and photograph in that water. He then took that same water and put it in front of 500 people and asked them to have loving thoughts. And he was actually able to create, again, a snowflake structure, similar but not quite as perfect as the one on the left-hand side of the picture. Now, we know that the world, the earth, is made for 70% of its surface out of water. When we are born, we are 95% water. And as we grow older, by the time we are adults, we are 70% of water. The water that is in our cells, in our vascular system, everywhere. And we need water every day, even to think clearly and properly. You know, we are asked to drink water regularly. And so if words, pictures, music can affect the structure of the water, and that water, when it is in a loving environment, is complete and perfect, then it is likely that the water will be able to function well and support our health and well-being. And when we are in an environment where there is stress, there is anger, there is, previous slides, then actually it might affect the way we feel, it might affect our well-being. In fact, there is evidence that linking positive emotions and thinking patterns are associated with better health. There are studies where children that grow in an environment where there is no safety, where there is fear, anxiety, frustration, and even pain, they don't grow as well. They don't develop as well. Dean Ornish in the late 80s wrote a book, and in this book he actually shared his story of a man who had a chronic debilitating disease. He was very ill, and his illness progressed. He was frustrated about that and didn't know what to do on how to improve his health. And he also became quite angry about his fate. And so he became, his friends started not to want to be with him. And he was actually quite lonely. One day, however, one of his friends decided to visit him, and he just came for a short visit because it was not great to be with him. And he just gave him a book, and the book was The Power of Laughter, the Healing Power of Laughter. So the man just stayed and read this book, and while he was reading it, he just tried it out, and he tried to laugh. And initially it was quite difficult, but then as he progressed, as he practiced, as he applied it, he actually noticed how his health was improving. And out of the bed, he actually went back into the wheelchair. And after some time from the wheelchair, he was able to mobilize on him by himself much better. And he actually lived quite a number of years thereafter, which is proof that whatever our thoughts are, and what Reena was saying, even to smile is really, really important. So what is the inner conversation within ourselves, and how can I change it? Now, I would like to have a little exercise with yourselves to see how we can actually apply a thought in our daily life. Next slide, please. So I would like to invite you to have a look at all these beautiful water crystals and become very quiet inside and just allow yourself to gaze at these water crystals. Just look at them, how intricate, how beautiful they are, how different and varied they are, because it is very difficult to have the same water crystal at the same time. And I want you to choose one of these. Which one did you choose? Which one spoke to your heart? Next slide, please. Now, I've written underneath what each of these ones, water crystals, listened to. There were glasses of water, and they had put a little message on each glass of water. So the first one was thank you. And this is a form of gratitude. The next one was love and beauty. Next one, happiness, wisdom, harmony. Look how in harmony, at the very top, there are two equal ones. It is perfectly harmonious, and it also has equality. The next one, family love. And this is probably very Japanese concept, but it actually shows 3 generations in a family. The lower one are the grandparents, the next level is the parents, and the upper level is the children. Next to it, love for humanity. Really almost showing how we are all different and how there is a variety. And yet, when we are together, we are perfect. And the next one, truth. Now, you've chosen one of these. Now just imagine if you were to apply this in your day-to-day life, in your interactions with others, in the interaction with yourself for the next month. Say you had chosen happiness. So in the morning when you wake up, try and think what makes you happy. And if there's nothing to make you happy, how could you bring happiness into your day? What actions could you do? Write a journal, like Reena was saying. Apply it in the evening. Check yourself. Where were the moments of happiness? And what actually made those moments happy? Or what is the love? How can you develop and how can you express love for humanity? So we are made out of water, and water is actually what flows in our body. Our consciousness, our thoughts affect how the water in our body is formed. And so if we want to self-care, if we want to be creative and express the good part, the positive self in ourselves, then find some time in this lockdown, some time maybe when you're alone or maybe even lonely, and change your thoughts. Bring thoughts of wisdom, of harmony, of gratitude, of happiness, of love and beauty, of truth. Write them down, journal them down, and transform how you feel. Because inner positivity reflects in outer health and positive relationships. So I want to stop here, and I want you to really apply this in the next little while. Thank you.
Great. Astrid, thank you very much for that lovely presentation and for making us think. And I'd just like to say that was really inspiring and very beautiful. And I was, moved between two crystals. Which one shall I choose? And I shall keep it in mind. And really, this has just emphasized to me how much learning there has been, how many different tips and techniques we have received today from yourself, from all our speakers, from Reena with the gratitude and the character strengths, and from Deidra about keep learning and applying self-compassion, and also from Sharon about bringing your creativity and movement to life with positive thoughts and intentions. So I feel like there is so much for us to do that I personally wouldn't know which one I was going to practice first, but I think what I'll do is I'll spend 1 week on each speaker's tips and recommendations. And I'm sure everybody will agree that we have a lot of homework to do for our next session. I'd like to encourage everyone to try and make a plan to apply something themselves. And I think we'll just finish with a moment's silence together. I'll put on a little bit of music, but really just to remind you all that the secret to taking ourselves out of negative states of being or feeling alone is to do something, is to try something different, try something creative, or just use creativity to break a pattern from one pattern so that you can embrace a different pattern. I love that tip from Sharon also. So I would like to invite you all to come back for our final session on the 6th of March. And hopefully by then you will have had time to practice lots of different things and we hope to kind of pull everything together and look at how further we can empower what we're doing. Thank you for your comments, everyone. Also, I can see those on the chat. And thank you for joining us. And I think let's leave it there today. Thank you so much. And we will also put on a slide of useful resources in case anyone is going through a difficult time. And we also have added the website for the positive psychology, the VIA character, in case anybody wants to explore and delve a little bit further into different character traits and perhaps do a quiz for themselves. Very much hope you've enjoyed being with us today. We've loved having you here. Without you, the seminars wouldn't have a meaning, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.